Hello, and welcome back to Whispers from the Dark. I'm going to take you back in time to a newspaper article published Monday, December 19th, 1994, in the Denton Record Chronicle in Denton, Texas. The story is titled, Mystery Santa Adds Cheer to the Holidays. Miracle on Hinkle Drive. It shows a picture of a Santa standing in front of a tree with the sack over the right shoulder. And the caption under the photo reads, "For the past 4 years, an anonymous Denton woman has added holiday cheer by visiting the Convalescent and Retirement Center, portraying Saint Nick early on Christmas Eve." Now I'm going to read you the story. This was written by Hal Hilliard. When employees and residents of Denton Good Samaritan Village on Hinkle Drive hear the jolly feminine ho-ho-hos, most smile at the familiar but unidentified face of the Mystery Santa. For the past 4 years, the anonymous Denton woman has added holiday cheer by visiting the Convalescent and Retirement Center, portraying Saint Nick early on Christmas Eve. And her job isn't complete until she meets everyone in the health center of the village and tells them Merry Christmas. Santa goes on to say, "I make sure everyone sees me. Going to the dining room and through the hallways," she said. "I love to shake everyone's hands and hug them. It takes about 3 hours to see everyone, but I hate to leave." The yearly visit to Good Samaritan is just her contribution to the Christmas spirit, which lacks for some during the holidays. Santa says, "I think about the residents of Good Samaritan first. A lot of those people won't have another Christmas. Sometimes the family feels bad when visiting relatives there. So Christmas can be a time when many people are depressed. They remember good Christmases of the past. A visit from Santa puts a smile on their faces." Even though the generous woman will make her 5th annual appearance at the village this Christmas, her identity still is unknown to everyone, including the employees. She says that we know her, and I've tried and tried to figure out who she is, but I just don't know, said Billy Splon, a licensed vocational nurse who has worked at the Good Samaritan for about 4 years. All of the residents like her. She comes in and talks to all of them. She seems to have a lot of fun and enjoy what she's doing. She just kind of shows up. It's kind of mysterious that we don't know who she is, but it's very thoughtful of her, and we appreciate it. The woman chose Good Samaritan Village over other retirement centers because she was highly impressed with its staff. Santa says they really care about the residents. The nurses give themselves well beyond their call of duty, she said. Last year, the woman's son, who portrayed an elf, took advantage of the opportunity to be Santa's helper and truly learned the spirit of giving. Santa says, "I visited a woman in her 90s who couldn't get out of bed. She reached up, pulled me down to her, and said, "Do you know how many years it's been since I've even thought about Santa?" That really made me feel like the real Santa. And now my son knows why I love doing this. Since their last trip, the Good Samaritan, Santa and her elf have been searching for an item to fulfill one of the residents' Christmas gift requests, but it's been hard to find. Santa said one woman said she wanted a red Cadillac all her life. At first I told her I couldn't fit that into my sleigh, but she said it could be a red Cadillac of any size, just something she could put on her bedside table. My son and I haven't found one yet, and we've asked everybody. If anyone wants to be a Santa's helper and locate or donate a red Cadillac model or something, it would be great. Fulfilling a woman's lifelong dream would make my Christmas, and I'm sure it would make hers. End of article. Now let me tell you how Santa found the red Cadillac convertible toy. The newspaper hit the stands around noon, and by 1:30, the newspaper article had gotten so much attention and so much buzz that the switchboard at the Denton Record Chronicle was ringing off the hook. They had several dozen people call and offer to donate a red Cadillac convertible toy so this Santa could deliver it to the 90-year-old lady. Okay, a little background on the story. I had been visiting this nursing home for 4 years, or several years. I guess newspaper says 4, so it had been 4. And I guess I was about to do my 5th. And for months, I had been trying to locate a red Cadillac convertible toy. My dad and my mom had been to the mall several times and looked at yard sales and thrift stores and everywhere they could find, and they couldn't find one. And this was before the internet became what it is now. I mean, back in '94, you were lucky if you got AOL or CompuServe, and I guess the modems were, 28 baud modems? I mean, it was pretty bad. Not at all like it is now, where now you can get on, search for a red Cadillac convertible in a search engine and get, 300,000 hits. Back then, no, you didn't have that. Hell, we didn't even have cell phones yet. Well, my parents had looked. They even talked to my brother in Austin. He was looking, supposedly. My ex-husband Amarillo was looking, supposedly. No one could find a red Cadillac convertible. And I just wanted the little toy a little matchbox car or whatever, it didn't matter, to take and put on her bedside table so she could look at it and dream about writing in it before she closed her eyes and went to bed. I remember this lady saying that her dad was very strict when she was growing up. That he was a preacher and she couldn't even wear pants. And that she really never got to do anything she wanted to do. And even as an adult, she couldn't get a red Cadillac convertible. She said, I would love to just ride in one time. But it wasn't to be. And she said, so I've settled for maybe just getting a little car to put on my table. Well, I remember when she said, or I walked in a room and I said, ho, 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 Merry Christmas. And she looked up at me and then kind of looked at me again and realized that I was Santa. And she laughed, and I walked over and bent down and started talking to her. And she says, well, how are you? And I told her I'm fine, and it's my busy time of the year. And she tugged on my beard and told me how pretty it was. And she says, I asked her, I said, what would you like for Christmas? What do you want Santa to bring you? And she said, a red Cadillac convertible. I said, well, honey, I'll try, but I can't promise you anything because I'm not sure that's going to fit on my sleigh. She says, oh, don't be silly. All I want is a little toy to put on my bedside table. She says, I never got one as an adult, and I couldn't even do anything I wanted to do. My dad was so strict, and I would like to just have one so I could look at it and dream of writing in it. I said, okay. That I might be able to pull off. I'll talk to my elves. I said, how old are you? And she told me 90. She either said she was 90 or she was 99. I really can't remember. I mean, after all, this has been many, many years ago. But I was worried throughout the year that she wouldn't still be with us come Christmas, and she would never get her red Cadillac. So, a few weeks before Christmas, after trying all year to find her a little red Cadillac toy, I was at my wit's end, and I felt so bad to show up without what I promised her in case she was still with us and her mind was still remembering that I'd promised. I told her I'd try. And my heart was broken. And I even contemplated not going back that year, just because I was ashamed I couldn't get her the toy. But I took her name down. I knew her name. So I called the nursing home and I asked them, was she still there? Was she still living and there? And they said, oh yes. She's been the same she's always been. She's right down the hall in the same room. And I said, great. Okay, well, I thank you. And then I sit there and I thought, what am I going to do? I don't want to rob the rest of the residents from the joy of Christmas by not visiting them. And I can't go and not see her. I can't skip her room. but I can't bring the toy. And so I thought, the only thing I can do is to call the newspaper. But I didn't want to come out and tell who I was. Because after all, this was the spirit of Christmas. The mystery Santa thing. I mean, the spirit of Christmas is giving to those. And the old saying, it's better to give than to receive. I wholeheartedly get that. I totally agree with that. Because this is the example for that. The fact that I could give her something for Christmas that she had always dreamt of and wanted was the best gift I could give her. And it fulfilled my heart and my dream of being able to give her something like that. It was better to give than to receive, although I need to receive a Cadillac to give to her. That makes any sense. And I knew the only chance I had was to call the newspaper, and I hated to do that because they'd want to know who I was. I didn't want to tell them. I didn't want that to be part of the story because, again, it's the mystery Santa thing. They didn't need to know who. They just need to know why. So it was hard for me to dial that number. That's back when we still had yellow pages. So I had to get the newspaper, or the yellow pages out, look up the paper, call them. I asked to speak to the editor. They gave me one of the assistants. The assistant bumped me over to one of the writers. I think first time I called, they were in a meeting. So I had to call back. And because I didn't want to leave my name and number, I mean, that kind of negates the whole part of being, mysterious, right? So I had to keep calling until I got somebody with the pulse that was willing to listen. Well, the person who finally heard me out said that they wouldn't do the story. They said, well, that's not how we do it. We have to have names. We have to be able to verify. We can't just do a story without a name. I said, first name is Nicholas. Last name is Claus. They call me Santa. Well, she didn't buy that. Or he didn't. I guess it was a guy the first time that I talked to. But he got the information, wrote it all down, that I went to Good Samaritan. I visited them for several years, and that there was a resident that I just called and made sure was still living and with us, and I promised her a gift, and I was going to try to bring it, but I couldn't find it, so that's why I went to the newspaper to ask if anyone had one to donate. But I didn't want to give my identity. That was the whole thing. I'll give you the story. It's a good one. It can be verified by the staff at the nursing home. But I'm not going to tell you who I am. And they said, well, we don't do that. But he got all my information, wrote it down. He said, I'll talk to my editor, but I'm pretty sure we're not going to do the story. I said, okay. Well, I had to try, because I've been trying all year to find a little toy. No matter what size, I just got to have something to take to her. Well, it wasn't even 20 minutes later, my phone rings. And it's a lady this time. And she said she's the editor. And she said, one of the writers gave me your story idea, and I hadn't heard anything about this. I said, well, it's only the residents and staff at Good Samaritan on Hinkle know about it, and my family. And she says, well, I just called the nursing home, and I asked them, do they know anything about a mystery Santa? And they said yes. And she's been coming. We don't know who she is. We all love her, and we have her family come up and pose with her for pictures. And she just called to see if one of our residents was still with us. And so, yes, that is really happening. Or that really happened. And they said, okay, we'll call you, what's your name? We'll call you back to get a statement. So then they call me and go, we want this story. We want this story, and we will help you get your little car, toy. Well, after some deliberations and some planning, we finally agreed how this was going to happen. I gave them my quotes. I, talked to them about my story, about what's been going on, what I was looking for, and the whole bit, and why. And then they said they wanted me to come up there and take a picture under their tree. Well, I thought they were trying to, try to sneak around and find out who I was. I thought they were going to try to bust me, find out who I was. And I didn't want any part of that. And I said, no, the only way I would come is in the back entrance after hours, whenever you have minimal staff there. And so they had me come at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock or something. They had a certain back door they wanted me to meet. Someone was going to come and open it for me at exactly 9 o'clock and unlock it, and they did. I was in my suit already, so they couldn't see who I was. I didn't have the hat or glasses on, but I had the wig and the beard and mustache and everything on. And, of course, I hadn't put the pillows under my Santa suit because that gets real hot in there. So once you put pillows, that's a lot of insulation and you heat up quick. And so I had the pillow with me in a bag. And I went in, asked where the bathroom was. They sent me in there. The photographer was setting up. And I went in, got the rest of my stuff on, and then went out and posed certain pictures for them. And the photographer loved it. He thought it was great that he was the only one that got to see Santa and still didn't know who Santa was. Well, newspaper come out. It hit the newsstands around noon or a little after. And by 1:30, the switchboard at the Denton Record Chronicle lit up. They were bombarded with calls. Everybody wanted to donate gifts to give to the residents or a red Cadillac convertible. And one guy said he had one and he would even drive me there in the red Cadillac convertible to deliver that one, a little toy one. And he would, take me. And I said, thanks, but no. I went ahead and opted. They gave me 2 or 3 numbers, but they said there's dozens of people offering and left their name and number. I took 3 numbers, and I looked over the names and numbers and what they said they had. And so the one that I opted to go with, I asked my dad. Dad was still living then. And I asked my dad, I said, do you know this guy? And he goes, oh, yeah. I know him. He's a good old boy. He owns a wrecking yard outside of Justin up on the hill. He's got a bunch of Cadillacs. And I said, yep, that would be him. And he said, oh, yeah. He said, I hadn't seen him in a while, but he said I used to go out there and talk to him about car parts or something every once in a while. I said, would you take me to go visit him? And he looked at me and said, what are you up to? I said, well, you know that story that was in the paper about the Santa, me wanting a Cadillac convertible? He goes, yeah. And I said, he's the one that I chose to get a hold of first. He said, oh, this will be good. I know him. So he takes me, Dad, and I decided we'd make a road trip of it. We go grab something to eat, grab us a drink, and we go through the country. We go find the wrecking yard, pull up. He sees Dad, and he waves at him. They shake hands. And we go inside and sit down, and he introduces me. And the guy's nice as he can be to me. And I notice when I'm looking around his office, he's got little shelves, it's just pieces of wood, that are attached to the walls all the way around, like layers. Like, you got one and then it's like a, I don't know, half inch by 6 or 8 inch plank of wood attached with these little L brackets to the walls, and then a couple feet above that one, another row. And I mean all around every wall. He had 100 or more. All kinds, every make and model of convertibles you can imagine. And I walked in and looked around and just smiled and sit there. And I was looking at all of them and just looking around. And Dad and him start doing their guy talk thing. And I'm just sitting there looking around. Dad looks over at me and grins. And Dad says, or that guy looks at my dad and says, well, what can I do for you, Jack? Jack says, well, I brought my daughter here to talk to you about something. She's looking for a car. And the guy says, well, okay. Most of mine are pretty banged up, but we could probably find you a good one. I've got a few that I might sell. And I said, what about a little red Cadillac convertible? He looked at me kind of funny, kind of bugged his eyes a little bit. And I said, I understand you called the newspaper and offered a red Cadillac convertible for Santa to deliver it. And his eyes got big and he said, yes, I did. I said, well, Santa's here to pick it up so I can deliver it. And he got all excited and got up and shook my hand and grinned and looked at my dad. And I mean, he looked like a little kid in a toy store with a gift certificate. I swear it was so cute. Now, you have to understand, these men are in their 70s, probably close. Had to been, yeah. Dad was almost 70, and that guy probably was about Dad's age or a little older, maybe. I'm not sure. But they were like little kids again, all because I played Santa, and they were helping me fulfill someone's dream. You know, again, that goes back to the saying, it's better to give than to receive. To see how much joy that brought them in helping me fulfill that lady's dream. That was a gift. That's the gift of Christmas right there. People, it's not the lights on the tree. It's not the gift that you get to open because you're excited to open it. It's not. The gift, the spirit of Christmas, is the gift of giving of yourself with heart and soul to someone, and then watching the spark in their eye light up. Unbeknownst, my dad taking me to pick up the Cadillac, and this man donating it. And then me being excited about being able to fulfill her dream. This one little act brought back the spirit of Christmas to all of us, taught us all what it was about. It was either that year or the year after. I'm not sure. I think the year after. My son went with me again as an elf. And we were walking down the south wing. And I had to visualize exactly where that wing was at Good Samaritan. South wing, one of the last rooms on the right. Went into, and we had not been there that long. We'd probably been there an hour and a half or two, maybe. We weren't done yet. And we were going to be taking a break after we hit that wing, because it was a short wing. There was shower rooms and beautician room and dining room and stuff. So it was kind of a short hall. So after seeing the residents up and down that hall, we were going to take a break and then finish. And I remember going in the room with my son. Knocked on the door, went to open it. Literally about that time, the light goes out. And the lady had just reached up to turn the light out to go to bed. And as I was knocking on the door and opening it, and I took a step in and I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, were you going to bed?" And she said, "Yeah, but I can stay up another minute. I'll turn the light on." She reached up and turned it. And I walked over to her bedside with my son beside me. And I said, "Merry Christmas, ma'am." And she looked up at me and her eyes got big. And she started to cry. She reached up, grabbed me by the beard, pulled me down where she could see me up close. And then she just stroked my beard and then stroked my suit on the shoulder and was just bawling like a baby. Well, needless to say, I cried too. I'm fogging up my Santa glasses, which is never a good thing. Because, fog up my Santa glasses and my nose starts running and then I'm just a mess because I got a white beard, And then I've got a son here and he's empathic like I am, so if I cry, he's going to cry. So, yeah, it just wasn't pretty. It was funny, but not pretty. And I said, "Ma'am, why are you crying?" And she said, "Do you realize how many years it's been that I even thought about Santa Claus on Christmas Eve?" And I said, "Oh, honey." And she said, "Thank you. I feel like I'm 6 years old again." And she was in her 90s. I gave her a hug, kissed her on her forehead, reached over and cut the light out, and said, "Close your eyes and dream of being 6 years old again. I will see you next year. Merry Christmas." And I walked out, closed the door. I leaned up against the wall in the hallway and just cried. My son was standing beside me, and he was about, I want to say 8 or 9, I'm not sure. Maybe 10, okay. He may have been 10 or 11 at that point, 10 maybe. And I looked at him and I said, you know, I've always told you the spirit of Christmas is giving to those that are less fortunate. And he nodded. And I said, she's not going to see another Christmas. I'm going to be the last Santa she sees in her whole life. I can sense that. I know that. And she knew that. That's why we both connected and cried. I said, son, that is the spirit of Christmas. Sure enough, the next year went by, and I went to the lady's room first to check on her to see if she had the one that I got the Cadillac convertible for, and she was no longer there. And when I asked the nurses, they didn't know who she was because she had already been gone over a year. They didn't remember. Someone else was in that room. So then I took a right and went straight on down the hall to the right, knocked on the door to check on that lady, the one that said she had not thought of Christmas in many years and felt like she was 6 again. And it was someone else in that room. Going on Christmas Eve to see people, playing Santa Claus, is fun. It makes you feel like you've given gifts to people that didn't cost anything but time. And for those folks, they never get people's time. And I used to be a CNA of several nursing homes, and I can tell you, it was rare for us to have time to spend quality time just to talk to these people. It was rare. But for someone like Santa to visit them on Christmas Eve and make them feel like they're 6 again, so they can go to sleep and dream of being a kid on Christmas. There's not a better gift than that. There isn't. You couldn't give them anything that would be more important in their opinion, nor in mine. So, if it's possible, make someone's Christmas. Make it special. Make it count. I don't care if it takes some of your time. Visit a nursing home. Get a Santa suit. You gotta do it. You've got to feel what the real spirit of Christmas is. Merry Christmas. I love you all.